Choose News Now Sports as your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks, sponsored by University of Iowa Healthcare.
I was like, you're the man. You saved my butt. Give him a kiss on the forehead in the locker room, too. You know, I was extremely stoked for him. You know, he deserves it.
A guy who got on campus 3 months ago, maybe, the hero of the Heroes game, Marshall Meeder. Plenty to talk about him. Plenty to talk about as we recap that 13-10 Iowa win on Black Friday. Welcome to Eye on the Hawks. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. Just pretty standard Iowa game. Really nothing out of the ordinary. Pretty straightforward. At 71-2 now since 2015, when leading at some point by 8 points. Some games get a little more wild than others. Lots to get to, lots to break down. Just the quintessential 2023 Iowa win. I think Mike put together some highlights. Do you just want to get into those? And
yeah, let's do it.
Relive the
one thing I'll say, Marshall,
craziness.
after the game, said he got on campus, 3 days before school started?
Something like that.
I remember a vague reference, we got a kicker from CMU in the transfer portal or something like that. Just kind of offhand game week. Because they brought in, I think there was another kid from Iowa Western, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if it's not for the gambling investigation and Aaron Blom's still on the roster, Marshall Meader's not here.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably not.
Weird, wild stuff.
Yeah, I think he said 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
Is when LeVar texted him.
Yeah. So here's a look back. Caleb Brown, we'll talk about him a little bit too, because we're not sure about his situation, but this was the start of just a rough day for Drew Stevens. You feel for the kid. He has been so clutch in certain situations, but one of 2 blocked kicks for him, 2 kickoffs out of bounds. Just a struggle. And boy, there's Steven Stilianos. Wow. What a huge play that was. The second longest pass play for Iowa this year, and he almost got in for his first touchdown.
Did not unseat Zach Ortworth?
No, that was still 53, 54, whatever it was, but 37 yards, the second longest. The Deke sneak, working to perfection again. He had another streak in Deacon moment at 1.2, I think an 8-yard run, maybe right here. Look at those feet. Look at this kid move.
My favorite part is he says first down and he was a yard short. But he got it the next play.
It's all about living with confidence, folks. Deacon, boy, some ups and downs for him as well, as we've seen through his 8 starts. Then, Caleb Brown, as he flashed, little pinball wizard there that set up what, we felt like was going to be a great touchdown. Instead, Drew Stevens gets the opportunity to kick. That one goes through, and boy, even that one felt a little shaky, at least watching on TV. I don't know how you
Did it really?
felt. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. Maybe at that point I was just feeling a little off. And then Chubba Purdy, boy, Mr. Third Down. He was 8 for 11 for 160 and a score. That score there. And then Le'Shawn Williams, just when you start talking up Caleb Johnson and seeing how hard Jazz runs, Le'Shawn reminds you he's kind of the number 1 back this year. And then Drew again.
This was a weird one.
Just tough. Yeah, because he kind of got tackled and threw it forward. YA walked in, and then just the run for the ages in between Ethan Hurkett's interception and Marshall Meeder's debut. You get Le'Shawn Williams with the hardest 22 yards he'll ever run, and then that was close.
I really thought it didn't go through from my angle when I first saw it.
Just wild. Marshall Meeder from the mean streets of Eaton Rapids, Michigan. A lot of people forget he was the 2021 Sun Bowl Special Teams MVP. That gets lost in the shuffle.
As Mike says, they don't just hand those out to anybody.
Boy, a kid. I don't know. So Steve Farron's youngest son of Kirk was a GA in Mount Pleasant at CMU, I think until the spring of 2020. So I don't know if there was any sort of, and we need to talk about this kid's hair.
Bring back the mullet. Marshall, come on. Why'd you cut a hair?
He's wearing an offensive lineman's number and rocking that kind of flow.
So here's me yesterday. I'm like, once we get back inside from the freezing cold, I'm like, okay, 92. I had to look it up. Marshall Meeder, and then I Googled him, and this is the first picture that pops up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
It should be his Iowa headshot. Still.
Again,
Tuesday, you guys got to ask him about his hair. Yeah. Why did you cut it?
Again, a kid who wouldn't be on the roster if it weren't for the gambling investigation. Yeah. I mean, it's, of course, this is how the final game of the regular season had to end. To get to 10 wins for just the fifth time in the regular season under Kirk Ferentz, 2002, 2009, 2015, 2021, and now 2023. Let's hear from Marshall and Deacon and Kirk about just a typical by the numbers Iowa win to get to 10-2 in 2023.
You know, my biggest thing is just staying ready no matter what. I was continually getting reps in the net and just ready for every opportunity. I'm really trying not to think about anything. Like, it's the same kick I've always made. Like, it's just a little bit more pressure, but I try not to let that get to me, you know. I feel like that's every kicker's dream. Like, I've always dreamt of that moment since I started kicking as a freshman, and I'm just happy to be there for my team and get that 10th win.
Yeah, I had no worries at all. I know Marshall, love Marshall. He's a great guy. He works very hard. He makes his kicks in practice when he's up there, so I had complete faith in Marshall that thing was going in.
Not overly surprised. And Drew just had a tough day today. He had a tough day. He's been a really good performer for us and just so consistent. But the fact that, 2 kickoffs go out of bounds, that's not characteristics. I just felt like maybe it was best to let him sit a little bit. And then the other component there was Marshall, since he's shown up, he's a delightful young guy. He's just a really good young guy. He's had a great attitude since he joined us, and then he's really performed really consistently. Both those guys have basically since we got going in August. So I felt like we had a pretty good backup plan there. He doesn't quite have the range that Drew has, but what you see him do every day in practice, makes you feel confident. And it wasn't exactly the cleanest field goal I've ever seen. It looked like the snap might have been a little low. Torrey does a great job, getting it down, and but it made it through the uprights, and that's all that counts. And when he came in the locker room, you just see how the players feel about him. It was a pretty good ovation.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool moment there for a kid who, again, shows up late August, gets into classes probably like the week school starts. Funny, Blake Hornstein had a video of Kelby Tellander basically not knowing that wasn't Drew Stevens. Yeah. Because I'm sure, like, on the sidelines and in the chaos, like, you don't know. It sounded like the PA guy at Memorial Stadium.
I'm like certain. I don't have like a fact check, but I was sitting there, and I thought I said Drew Stevens on for the field goal, and then I'm like, in my head, it was so cold that my brain couldn't function correctly. I'm like, 92's not Stevens, and then I was like, who is this?
Yeah,
just wild.
That's what I think a lot of Hawkeye fans are asking. Who is this? I think we saw somebody say that Dolph's first question to Marshall Meeder was, "Who are you?"
He, at last check, doesn't have a headshot on the roster.
No, that's true, because I went to his.
He's just got the Hawkeye, which they do for like walk-on freshmen, or kickers that show up from Mount Pleasant, Michigan, in late August.
So some backstory on some stuff that he mentioned. I think he spent the most time, other than Kirk, because everyone was just peppering him with questions.
Yeah. Who are you?
He's an engineer major, so like when he entered the transfer portal in April, he talked to a few schools, and he said it's kind of hard to find a school that has engineering.
Sure.
And he said he was going to give up football. He was ready to give up football, and he said, like, at that point in August, like in the early summer, he was kicking twice a week, just trying to stay ready.
Sure.
But then in August, he just like I kind of stopped, and then LeVar texted him, "Hey, would you want to be a Hawkeye?" And he said he went 4 times a week after that, and just was ecstatic. And then came. He said he arrived on campus 3 days before classes started. So, I mean, just kind of wild how that transpired.
Just a simple text. Yeah. Hey, what's up?
I did. I remember finding it interesting because I wrote the first time his name came on my radar was a week ago when
Senior Day.
It was Senior Day, and I was writing down all the seniors. And did he actually come out for Senior Day festivities? I don't know if he actually.
I feel like he did.
Did he really?
I wasn't there, so
I think he did.
I could not remember. I did not get video of him, but there's a lot. Senior Day kind of moves quick when you're trying to get video of a lot of people. So he could have come out, but he could come back for another, I think, even 2 years of eligibility. Because I think 2021 and 2022 he played. He played in 2020, doesn't count. This year would, be a redshirt year since he hasn't played in any games until.
Well, if he wants to come back, I assume he's been in school long enough. He's a legal drinking age. He'll never pay for a beer again in Iowa City. Just again, the
kickers always never.
Miguel Racinos, Keith Duncan, Marshall Meeder.
Mm-hmm. I was kind of asking, or me and Mike were talking about this yesterday to see if you could rank those 3 kicks as far as like either favorite, most memorable, most important, something.
Keith blowing kisses to the sideline is so. I feel like,
it's beautiful.
Unfortunately, and I don't know if it's because he was a 1-year starter or what, but like nobody talks about how gosh darn good Miguel Racinos was as a kicker. He was a great kicker. I couldn't even tell off the top of my head. Was it 2018?
2018, yeah.
Yeah. He was great, but nobody ever talks about him.
All three of them are special to me. This one because I was there.
This is just so random.
Yeah, it was totally random. Keith Duncan with the kisses, and then selfishly, I once played pickup soccer with Miguel Racinos when I lived in Mason City.
Great
He's
soccer player,
he's awesome. He was the best player on the field. But that was a really cool moment too. How do you rank them? I mean, this one gets you to 10 wins. We were chatting back and forth on the ride home, and we'll talk about this later, the 10 wins thing. And I guess we could. But 10 wins is important to me as a fan, and I know, but it really doesn't do a whole lot to Iowa's situation.
It doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's I remember, I think I talked about this last week. I remember after the Minnesota game in 2009, which put Iowa at 10-2, and they'd lost Ricky to the injury against Northwestern, and James Vandenberg was out there making his second career start against Minnesota and all that. And I remember asking DJK about 10-2 is not perfect, but what does it mean to get to double-digit wins? And he's like, that's a big deal. And that was only at 2009. That was only the second time Iowa had done that in the regular season. So it's.
I mean, just like I probably would rank it. If it was Drew Stevens who'd made it, I probably would rank it at the bottom of those three. But the fact that it's a kid who had not been on a field in 364 days.
Who was ready to quit the sport.
Yeah.
Or just
that
retire, I suppose.
First kick of the year, first kick as a Hawkeye, and it's one that puts them at 10 wins, keeps Nebraska out of a bowl game. That's incredible stuff.
Yeah, speaking of keeping Nebraska out of the bowl game, do you want to pull up? So Iowa put out a graphic as they do their final score, and there is a sizable amount of shade all over this, which kudos to Flight Creative in that group, the in-house media team for the University of Iowa Athletics.
I'm trying to find it. What was the graphic?
There was the final score one.
Oh, okay.
Of Memorial Stadium. So it's a shot of Memorial Stadium. And
oh my gosh, I'd never seen this yet. This is funny.
Oh, you haven't seen this?
No, I didn't.
If you can zoom in a little bit, we'll do this live. For those that aren't watching on YouTube or listening to this later, again, go to the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. You can see all the videos and everything we've got here. So we're taking a close look. So you've got the NCAA record for consecutive sellouts, and you see sellouts there in quotation marks.
I did not notice that.
Because again, they've sold out every game for 396 consecutive games, but that stadium never looks full.
I mean, there's empty seats in the image.
Yeah, I'm sure that was planned. Yeah. You see down in the lower right-hand corner, 7 consecutive seasons without a bowl game.
The train keeps rolling. Oh my gosh,
train keeps rolling,
this
and
is
the
great.
fun thing under train keeps rolling is the acronym LEOFEE. I have not confirmed what this means, but I believe and it first popped up. The first time I saw it was, I believe, Jamari Harris and Cooper DeJean after winning. What game was it? What game was that? Right after. It might have been the Illinois game. No, maybe one before that.
Rutgers.
Rutgers. It was after the Rutgers game. I believe it means love each other, forget everybody else.
Oh, okay.
Do with that acronym what you will. But it's come up more and more. I saw it in that post again. I think post Rutgers, Leo Fee popping up over and over, and now it's legitimately in an official graphic. That feels like the mantra they've had, though.
Yeah.
And hey, who are we to say what does and does not work in a crazy mixed-up
Seems to
season
work for
like this?
them. Yeah. One thing that didn't get asked yesterday, we were talking about it on the car ride home, the long car ride home, is who starts at kicker in the Big Ten title game next year or next week?
Kirk made it sound like Drew just needed to sit for this game. So I don't know. I mean, again, you saw Marshall. You're a hero, but that was that ball's not making it 40.
Yeah,
that was a close kick, and maybe Drew just needed to sit and get his head right. And
one other thing Marshall said that I didn't cut into the highlight, the soundbite is. At the end, he said, did Drew say anything to you? He's like, we were in contact the entire game. He's like, I wish it was Drew that made it. Sure. But this is a cool moment, one of those things where he says they're pretty good friends. So
that's good.
I'm not normally the one coming in with kicking analysis. However, speaking with Curtis Fader last night, who was a high school kicker and knows a thing or two about kicking a football. I mean, Kirk talked about the field conditions that they maybe weren't great, and Curtis said that in some of the overhead shots of the stadium, he could tell that the field was garbage because
turf.
you can Right, and that's the thing is that you can see like different like shades all across the field where it's like the pellets are not evenly distributed all across the field. So there's like spots that are a lot darker and then spots that are a lot lighter, and so the field was not, in his opinion, in great condition.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
He did have like a blocked PAT last week, and it just makes you wonder and then he missed one the week before, didn't he, against Northwestern?
He's missed a kick in 4 straight weeks. Yeah.
It's a slump, and going into the Northwestern game, you would have thought he's usually automatic, like you're confident. Then he hit the game winner against Northwestern, still hit a field goal yesterday, and then that Nebraska kicker, maybe the field did have something to do with it. The Nebraska kicker kicked one of the worst field goals I've ever seen. Like that was he missed it so bad to the left, like something had to go wrong there, and I don't know what it was. I had to go back and look at it, but.
Yeah.
Well, it was next man in, certainly for Marshall Meeder, not because of injury, but because of lack of performance. Deontay Craig was in and out, it sounded like, against Nebraska, and so Ethan Hurkett got a few more reps, leads the team in tackles, and makes one of the most improbable interceptions you'll ever see. The kid from Cedar Rapids, Xavier, who used to play linebacker for the Saints in Jim O'Connell's defense, playing a little linebacker again, getting the pick that changes everything. Ethan Hurkett, Jay Higgins afterwards talking about a play that, of course, it had to happen in this game where next man in has to be on full effect.
We were in a blitz, and basically Nick Jackson, our linebacker, made a really good call, and that put me in the middle, like the middle zone on the field. So I was kind of just sitting back there in my zone, and I saw the ball get thrown. It was like almost in slow motion, and fortunately, God allowed me to catch it and run a little bit afterwards. I couldn't really believe it at first. I was like, is this really coming right to me? And then fortunately it did.
We just sent the pressure from the field. Had the Will Backer take the wall sink flat into the boundary, had Hurkett take the middle of the field. And with a D lineman in coverage, we're not asking for a whole lot. You kind of want the pressure to help him out. But I mean, Hurkett's been talking about playing linebacker here for the last 4 years. I think he made a pretty good linebacker play.
And we heard earlier this year Seth Wallace say, or I believe it was either Joe or Jay, talk about how Seth always tells guys, you need to hustle more like Hurkett. Yeah, maybe moving him into the linebacking room. That was pretty impressive, and what a moment. Mike just pointed out, Jay Higgins, you could never tell that, just no celebration whatsoever. His dad, and you caught a great moment down there, Roy, just so demonstrative and celebratory at all times, and Jay is just total even keel.
Yeah, here's the play on YouTube. I'll get a mouse off the screen. Just look at 34 afterwards. He just walks off the field like it's business as usual. Everyone's oh, you know what?
And Dwayne. Yeah. Dwayne Schulte, folks. I
can't get this phone to work.
Anytime I text Dwayne, it's blue bubbles. It still blows my mind that he has an iPhone. I remember getting that the first time. He's like, "How is this blue?" He owns an Apple product.
That particular replay that you were just showing, somebody pointed this out on Twitter and my replies to it, and they made a really interesting point about it because, like, I had a view right behind where Chubba Purdy was standing, and from his vantage point, you saw the ref standing right there, kind of in the middle, like before the secondary.
Sure.
And then Ethan kind of like steps in, just like right in front of where he would have seen the ref.
Yeah.
And so somebody thought, like, maybe he saw the ref there and just like didn't, he thought Ethan was the ref.
Yeah.
And,
just for a split second, just saw
a white
mass,
shape.
a mass there. Yeah.
So could have played a part in the interception.
It's a good shot that Hawkeye football. It was from the broadcast. You can see him just drop back. I'll try and find it real quick. They say he was in zone blitz. He was lined up as a defensive end and just kind of drop back. Here it is. I'll pull it up real quick.
And again, he's probably not in there on that. Well, maybe he's gotten quite a bit of reps,
Yeah.
but Deontay Craig was out, so
I think
he steps in and
Chubba just saw a blitz, did not, and he's like, okay, this guy underneath is going to be open. And if he wasn't there and that pass was completed, they would have had a decent game-winning field goal.
Yeah, for sure.
We talked about this a bit before we started recording, Mike and I. Brock Purdy, as great as he was at Iowa State, the best quarterback Iowa State's ever had some moments, some turnovers that were just inexplicably bad, including the final play of his Cyclone career in that Cheez-It Bowl loss to Clemson, where he runs for a first down and runs back losing yardage, and then the ball just kind of pops out. Chuba somehow, hereditarily, does kind of the same things at certain points, where it's just like, he plays great. Again, he was fantastic on third downs, and then there are just plays where it's the fumbles, and Castro forced one with a really great play, but like, just some plays where you're like, man, what happened?
It's kind of the, I mean, is it not reminiscent? Well, as a Packers fan, is it not reminiscent of Brett Favre a little bit? Like
a little gunslingery, yeah.
Yeah, just like he does some things that are like they might take a year off of your life with one of these plays that he runs, but he does some wild things that sometimes work out like, holy crap, how did he do that?
Yeah.
And then other times you're like, why was he doing that?
Now, these past few games, though, I've really been impressed with him, and I like Matt Rule as a coach. I think he's a good coach.
Yep.
And I'm kind of, as a Hawkeye fan, worried about Nebraska long term. I think they're going the right direction. I think Purdy has a few more years. You got to think he's the quarterback next year. What he did for most part was good, and obviously limit the turnovers, and Nebraska probably wins the game.
Yeah.
But you have to limit the turnovers, and some quarterbacks can. Brock could do it, not against Iowa, but like he's one of the best quarterbacks playing right now in the NFL right now. So I think he could do it. He looked pretty good for the most part.
I saw a tweet once about Brock Purdy, and it felt right, where it was something to the effect of, Brock Purdy must be the most religious man in the NFL because he throws the ball with nothing but good vibes and a confidence that everything is going to work out in the end. And you see that maybe it's in the bloodline.
Yeah, it's again when he was on, particularly on third down, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
They limited the rush though. He only had I think one like nice little 12, 13, 14, 15-yard run. Had a little bit of one that he got outside the pocket and gained 3 right before the interception. But for the most part, Nebraska's running offense was capped up pretty good. Iowa had success. We'll talk about that after the break.
Better sleep means better morning. Start your morning waking up on a Restonic mattress. At Corcoran Furniture, we are Delaware County's largest Restonic mattress dealer. We have great prices on Ashley Furniture and the largest selection of Restonic mattresses, featuring the marvelous middle, giving you more support where you need it so you can sleep soundly. And it's made for you right here in Iowa. So if it's a crossword, coffee, or the morning news, let Corcoran Furniture help you start your morning off right. Visit Corcoran Furniture in Manchester or shop online at CorcoranFurnitureManchester.com.
Well, we talked about the running game really going to be important, as it always is for Iowa, trying to establish a good run game. We talked about on Wednesday how Nebraska was, I believe, 6th in the nation against the run, less than 89 yards per game, and Iowa was able to find some success, particularly through LeSean Williams, 16 carries, 111 yards, or 11 carries, 116 yards, 16 for 111. Third 100-yard game for him. Otherwise, Nebraska was pretty well capped. 30 carries for 75 yards, longest of 14. That was a 14-yard scramble by Chuba Purdy. Otherwise, no run longer than 6th. Hawkeyes afterwards about not just succeeding with the run, but capping it as well as they did.
It was a counter. I was just being patient. O-line opened up a hole for me. I seen it, and I just hit it. I got to get us to field goal range, or I was trying to score, truthfully, but yeah, they got me. I mean, I got to give credit to the O-line. They're giving me a lot of space, where I feel like that's where I'm best at. They opening up a lot of holes. Me just, having more experience and trusting the track and trusting the play call and really just running downhill.
Yeah, it's just, we come in the locker room, we gave up a big play, and obviously we want to limit those. And I just looked at my guys in the locker room. I understood the assignment. I understood that I had a bunch of guys ready to fight for the win. Nobody started pointing fingers, and that's what we're all about. We were defense. We were put in some tough situations to basically win the game, and I feel like we did a great job in that.
40 carries for 163 yards. Iowa as a team, 4.1 a carry. Deacon again with a nice little scramble. Caleb Johnson, 10 carries for 30 yards. Caleb Brown, you saw 11 yards on a sweep. Jazzian Patterson with 5 carries for 6 yards. Listen, it's 1 or 2 yards for a lot of carries, and then you go bust one for 53 or 22, and yeah, that's the chunk of your rushing attack, but those are the 2 plays that can make all the difference in the world, it feels like.
It's so weird with Iowa, Nebraska, to go back to the ending of it, that I really was bracing myself. I think even going back to about the 1 minute mark, or 45 seconds or so, I thought it was really questionable on Kirk's part when I think Deacon got taken down for a sack, and then Kirk called a timeout. And I'm thinking, like, bro, you better be hoping for overtime right now, because you're about to have to punt the ball away, and Nebraska's going to have a chance to come down here. You don't want to give them any more time than what they already have. Obviously, all worked out in the end, but Nebraska's a team. This game reminded me so much of the season opener against Minnesota, where everything needed to go wrong for Nebraska to lose that game, and it did. And it's the same exact thing seemed to happen yesterday, where with 23 seconds left in the game or whatever, like, the exact sequence of wrong things needed to happen for Nebraska to lose that game. Throwing an interception, big chunk play to get down in field goal range, and then a made field goal. I mean, they have to feel so snake bit at this point to, like, have all of these things keep happening that keeps them out of playing a postseason game.
And one of the big talking points through all this was the fact that there was time on the clock for Iowa to do all that. I talked to Mike a little bit about this and the awareness of the clock not starting in Memorial Stadium. What did you notice through that?
Nothing at all. I did not know that was the storyline until, like, 2 hours maybe after the game, and I saw the ESPN article about it and said, like, clock blunder, helps Iowa win game or something.
I told you guys I was next to Chelsea at 9, and I was sitting there, and it was a completed pass. It wasn't a first down, and I turned to her, and I'm like, why is the clock stopped? And it was stopped for a good 10 seconds total or 12?
12, I think, yeah.
And then they started rolling the clock, and at the time, I'm thinking, well, that benefits Nebraska. They don't have to burn a timeout. They get some time.
Exactly.
They can move down the field still, and it ended up helping Iowa in a ironic way. I don't think the clock operator. I mean, I don't know him. Maybe I wouldn't assume that they did it on purpose. I wonder if they thought it was a first down because it was like second and short, wasn't it? Or
I think
It was a second down.
Yeah. But no, I don't think anyone in the crowd kind of realized it either until after the game. And then I watched the broadcast this morning, and
That's
they
all
were
they
right
talked
on
about.
it. Yeah.
Really?
All they talked about, yeah.
Yeah, I mean imagine if Iowa had lost that game on a game-winning field goal at the last second. Like, Kirk would have had some
I
earth to scorch.
I text to our group chat in there. I go, whoever wins this game, the loser is going to be real upset about that, because whoever wins it benefited from 12 extra seconds, particularly if it was in regulation. And that's
Another weird thing that happened, I think just before then, when Purdy ran the ball and was just short. Then they come out, there's a false start, they go back 5 yards.
And then they review the play.
Yeah, me and Chelsea were talking about the entire time, like, can you review that after they call a penalty? And if it gets
would Rule try to get that reviewed had there not been a penalty?
Exactly. Yeah.
That, I had no idea what happened there.
Now,
It's very strange.
In the end, that never mattered because he threw a 16-yard pass like the next play.
Yeah.
But if they would have overturned that, it just makes you think, like, would the penalty still have happened? Did they put him back 5 yards but give him a first down?
I'm learning so much about the rules.
I honestly, I mean, there's technically no play that ran, so I guess they could review it, but there was a penalty. It just doesn't.
A play ran, it was a penalty.
Yeah, it was weird.
I don't know. I do not envy being an official or a replay official or any sort of rule person.
There's a lot of yelling from the Iowa sideline as that was going on. Kirk,
I bet, yeah.
Phil Parker, and Seth Wallace, and I mean,
Phil yelled, "Go on!"
It seems like everybody was up in arms about them being able to review that play. That was weird.
Well, speaking of being up in arms, Iowa's 10-2. There's a segment of the population who believes possibly another win could be out there. We'll talk about the situation as it is in reality, though. 10-2, double-digit wins, again, 5th time in the regular season under Kirk Ferentz. Deacon Hill and company just talking about what it means to get to a double-digit milestone like that.
Yeah, if you told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have told you you're nuts. But it means a lot. I think it's just an attestament to the team and how hard we've worked since the beginning of January, since I got here. Me and the other transfers bought in immediately to what the culture is here. And I think that's just how it's been, me getting close to the team and progressing, trying to progress each week.
I mean, there's not a lot of Iowa teams that can say they had a 10-win regular season, 7 wins in the Big Ten. So we understood what we had at stake this game. Nebraska, they competed. We knew we were going to get their best game, just for what they had bowl eligibility. And then, they always play us tough. So we knew what we signed up for.
And again, 10 wins with everybody hurt.
Yeah, I will say at the beginning of the clip, Deacon was asked what it would, or what if I told you, at the end of this or before the season, if you'd be a starting quarterback for a 10-win Big Ten team, and he was like,
I wouldn't believe him either.
I wouldn't believe it.
You lose Cade McNamara, Luke Lachey, Eric All. Caleb Johnson was beat up for a while. The offensive line has got some injuries, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. Caleb Brown didn't play the second half. You lose Cooper DeJean a couple weeks ago. Jamari Harris didn't play the first couple of games for suspension. Noah Shannon doesn't play at all. Again, knock on Jay Higgins and the linebacking core haven't been bit by the injury bug, but everybody else has, and this team won 10 games. I think that's why maybe we see Kirk as emotional as he has been. I mean, it's usually like the big games he gets emotional. We've seen it every single week, and I think it's because he has to know this team has every reason in the world to fold, and they don't. And they just keep figuring out ways to win. Mm-hmm. It's got to be. I mean, I think he's Big Ten Coach of the Year, regardless of what happens in 20 minutes in Ann Arbor. Because who in their right mind would think with backups galore, a kicker who walked in 3 months ago, you're going to win 10 games with that? Because he's seen. Listen, Iowa will have, I think, almost unquestionably, they have to, a better offense in 2024. They'll do better numbers.
I don't know. I'm just kidding.
They're going to be hard-pressed to win 10 games in the regular season in 2024. This team has defied every odd imaginable. And it's why, as much as we dissect numbers, sometimes there's, again, hallmarky. Sometimes there's just stuff you can't measure. Yeah. Just guys going out there and finding ways. And I think that's what makes him so emotional, because he's like, I'm sure his intermonics log is just, how are we doing this? I mean, you're getting guys in the right spots and guys are making plays, but we, again, going 09, Ricky Stanzi went out and that team was completely different. Granted, you're going from, it was another kid who hadn't taken any college snaps, James Vandenberg, but it changed that entire dynamic of that team. This team's lost 7 guys like that.
True.
And they ended up 10-2. Yeah. A very different 10-2 than that Hawkeye team.
I am certainly one who is given to hyperbole from time to time. But I agree. I feel like this Hawkeye team, amongst all that Kirk has coached, among all that, it's hard to ever say something all time with the Hawkeyes, because it's like, well, what about that team in 1914 that, I don't know anything prior to the Hayden Fry era, really. But a team that has to go down as like one of the most unforgettable teams. I mean, certainly not like the best Hawkeye team, not ranking in that list, but just like, how in the hell does this team keep making it happen every week? I've referenced that Tim Tebow season with the Broncos in 2011 that I only remember because I'm a Broncos fan. Yeah. But, people were just pulling their hair out. How did they keep coming back and winning these games?
There was a final drive for 7 weeks straight. It was just, Tim's going to figure out a way with 90 seconds left.
And then against Nebraska, with 23 seconds left in the game, you get an interception and a chunk play from Leishon, and then a backup kicker who is not even going to be playing football 4 months ago comes in and makes a game-winning field goal. I mean, it's beyond comprehension what this team is able to do week in and week out, winning 10 games. Do I think they will win another game this year? Bluntly, no, I do not think they're going to win another game this year, but still getting that 10-win plateau is really, truly remarkable.
Not to mention Nebraska, I'll use a term they used early in the season, they out-Iowa'd Iowa yesterday. They blocked 2 field goals. I'm trying to think of everything that they did. They played really good defense for the most part, other than those, a couple big chunk plays. And Iowa got the ball in the 10-yard line, I think, 4 times.
Wow, really?
Only scored 1 touchdown. I think I heard someone say that on the radio. I can't remember who exactly. Only scored 1 touchdown, blocked the other 2 field goals, and so Iowa could have had a 20-0 lead at some point, and then it's over, essentially. Yeah. But they stuck around. They came back. It was 10-10, and they had a chance to win at the end, and then they Nebraska'd.
They out-Scott Frosted Matt Rule.
Yeah.
It's rare that Iowa gets outplayed in special teams and wins. It's kind of, despite the last kick, Nebraska was fantastic in special teams. They were really great. But again, 10 wins is awesome. 11 wins is, well, it's one better, isn't it? These go to 11. Kirk Ferentz believes this team should be at 11-1. And when he was asked about what it means to have a 10-win season, he decided to revisit the Cooper DeJean situation against Minnesota.
Well, 12 would have been better. We've only done that once, and that's hard. I can tell you that. But yeah, it means a lot because it's the best we could do after losing to. I won't go down that road. We got screwed. Okay, I'm just going to tell you we got screwed in that one by a special replay system. I'm still not happy about that, quite frankly. So it's a different discussion for a different day, but. Nonetheless, it was a good season, and just really, it's special, really special. And I don't ever play that card, but I'm playing it right now. That's still the most ridiculous thing I've seen in the last, quarter century. Okay, I can take that replay stuff and blow it up, start over again. I mean, we were trying to make this stuff rocket science, and it isn't. It's football.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can top that one, but.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other point. So we talked about the officials pregame, right? Since that game, still nobody has told us you can't do this. That's a fair catch. Over the head, 2 waves. It's just, it's like, oh yeah, that happens all the time. That's a bunch of I tell you. Unbelievable. Okay.
I was wondering what you were going to do for that last line.
He kept
beat button.
He kept doubling back on himself, like, all right, that's all I'm going to say. But you know what really pisses me off?
It was second time in like 4 days I've mentioned Ron Howard's Arrested Development narrator voice of just, I'm not going to go down that road. He did. Listen, at the beginning of the season, I picked Iowa to go 11-1 and to only lose at Penn State. And I'm hard-pressed to feel like I wasn't right. It's brutal, and it's part of the lore. Maybe the clock situation in Lincoln is some sort of cosmic intervention to say, hey, like, got you once, but the universe will balance things out.
Yeah.
I do not blame him one bit for feeling like that.
Yeah.
And he's always been a little, as you heard him outline several times, leery about just the intervention of replay and what they're looking at and how they look at it and what they go in to start doing and what they end up coming out with. Above all, poor Scott Docterman, who just wanted to ask a football question, who just kept getting interrupted. And he's, just tough.
I glanced over a few times because, of course, Beth Getz was in the post-game presser with us. And so at the times when he was saying that's a bunch of S and so on and so
What
forth.
he said?
I kind of glanced over at her like, is she going to, no reaction. I mean, she was just kind of standing and watching it all unfold. I'm like, wait, is she happy? Does she like? She might like it. Kirk is going into this now, but anyway, afterwards they gave each other a nice embrace, and so it was lovely to see. But
it was definitely a shocker when he went off on the tangent because I was like, wait, what did Steppy ask him? Oh, he just asked him about 10 wins.
10 wins.
And then I had to rewatch, and he's like, okay, it came up in his mind, and then he goes, all right.
He said 12 would be nice, and then 11's better. We had 11.
Yeah. So I think he's just echoing what a lot of fans are saying too, and I tweeted it out on our station account, and it kind of blew up. And I've just been, all the Hawkeye fans are like, hell yeah, let's go, brother. And then Gopher fans found it, and they're like, well, actually, in the letter of the law, it's like, get out of here. There was one that said, like, my teenage son knew this rule. It's like, no, you didn't. Right?
You lie.
An invalid fair catch. You didn't hear
I've
about
learned
it.
more about what left arms can and cannot do in football in the last month and a half.
Your teenage son don't know S.
I'm calling cap.
It's
calling cap now.
part of the story of the season, I guess. Yeah. Just like the fact that this team found a way to win 10 games and still feels like they were slighted is just, that's football, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, we got to take one out of like Ohio State and Michigan's book. Hawkeyes against the world.
Yeah.
That's their mantras.
When's the last time you heard Kirk drop a expletive in a press conference that like actually needed to be bleeped? He said some dams and some hells and some, what else can I say on here? Can I say the A word?
You can, but I wouldn't because I don't want to have to mark a expletive podcast.
So he can say that, he can drop the A bomb too, but I feel like I've never heard him say the S word.
Yeah.
You remember an occasion where
I've been on the sideline close enough to him that I know he's got a wide range of vocabulary. Yeah. Kirk Ferentz is a human being just like everybody else, folks. He gets frustrated and uses the same language we do. Do it that way you will. It's, man, just wild. I feel most for Cooper. Just what an incredible moment that was. And again, 11-1, we were talking before we came on. If I was going into the Big Ten title game 11-1, they're probably, as wild as it sounds, they're probably ranked ahead of Penn State because Penn State would have 2 losses. Maybe 11-1, maybe like around where Missouri is, like 8th or 9th, maybe 10th. And you're a win in the Big Ten title game away from, if some other dominoes fall, not only you going for a New Year's Six game, you're playing for a shot at like that number 4 playoff spot. I'd be a little ticked off too.
Yeah.
If I'm Kirk Ferentz. You know you've had a season for the ages, and you're so proud of this team, and the fact that you still feel like there's a little meat on that bone that tells you what that play and that ruling meant.
And there could even be an argument that if they're a one-loss team right now going into the Big Ten title game, let's say they lose 35-3 to Michigan next week, I think they could still make a case for a New Year's Six game if they're
your only losses,
11-2.
Your only losses would be to Michigan, who's a playoff team, and a number 11 or 12 Penn State team, whose only losses are 2,
Michigan,
one, if not 2 playoff teams. Yeah, I mean that's
that still could be a very legitimate axe to grind for Iowa fans.
And by the sounds of it, the sharpener will keep going for as long as they want. We do look ahead to the Big Ten title game, and again in 13 minutes in Ann Arbor, Ohio State and Michigan will kick off for the right to play Iowa in Indy next Saturday, 7 o'clock on Fox 28. We'll see what Iowa's injury situation looks like. It sounds like Deontay Vines is going to be back. He's missed the last couple with an injury. Logan Jones sounds like he'll be back again. Tyler Ellsbury stepped in and was terrific, as he has been the last few weeks. Caleb Brown did not play in the second half. Deontay Craig did not play a big chunk of the game yesterday, so we'll just.
I don't think he played at all.
Did he not play at all?
Yeah, I think I heard someone say in the media room that he didn't get a snap.
Deontay Craig, I know.
They both warmed up.
Defensive stats or anything, so I'd imagine maybe not.
And Hurkett and Graves were out there a lot.
Yeah, Graves.
I'd have to
had a
look.
nice game.
I don't
Graves
know.
has
He
been
actually
very quietly having an awesome year.
Yeah.
Again, one of those that the numbers aren't there. Joe Evans was beat up at some point. I saw him get up and move really slowly.
Vines might be the most important piece because
if Brown's not healthy,
if Brown's not healthy in the second half, we had Nico, Bostic, and who else was the receiver? I'm blanking on. At any rate, it's like they couldn't.
Jared Bowie out there. Seth would have been.
Seth Anderson,
Seth had a
sorry.
nice catch.
Seth, those 3 were out there.
Seth always has one catch for like 15 yards.
Yeah.
He'll make a nice first down grab, and then you don't hear from him again.
It's just we need someone who can create separation, create plays, and Caleb was that guy. So, and hopefully Vines would come back and do that too. But
yeah, hopefully I wonder if part of this is just like, hey, like let's not throw in a guy in banged up.
Mm-hmm.
To just let's make sure we're as healthy as we possibly can be going into Indy.
As much as this was not a week to rest our starters, et cetera, a guy like Vines or even Logan Jones maybe that is like on the verge of being healthy, like maybe want to leave those guys out of there.
in the Jones's part, like Ellsbury's played, like I feel like he missed a step. So like why, you can afford that.
Yeah.
And same with Vines. Brown has been playing outstanding.
Yeah. And again, Jacob Bostic, who has been so banged up, kid from Palatine, Illinois, who I feel like if he's healthy, he can be a dude that does something. He's been out there getting reps with the ones, and hopefully he can do something. Jarrett Bowie's had some reps with the ones as well. And Seth would love to see Seth have a 4 or 5 catch game where he goes off and maybe a big stage gives him that opportunity.
The ones, or did we want to take an ad break and then talk more injuries?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Oh yeah, I skipped over an ad break. We'll be right back after.
Bauman's has been selling quality clothing for over 100 years. We carry a wide selection of men's and women's clothing. We recently expanded to offer a great selection of shoes and accessories. We have the area's best selection of both big and tall and can outfit anyone from the farm to the office to a casual night on the town. Bauman's is a proud family-owned business, and we're excited to continue the tradition of quality clothing and unmatched customer service since 1909. Visit us for all your clothing needs.
As I was saying, the one step that Tyler Ellsbury did miss yesterday, and I don't know if you got a chance to see this on the TV broadcast or how visible it was, but I was back behind the end zone when I was backed up on their own 1, 2, 3 yard line, and Deacon had that play where he stumbled.
Nobody is better at handing off or tossing a ball while at a 45-degree angle to the ground than Deacon Hill. He did it twice yesterday, and he averted disasters. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the one. I mean,
It would have been a safety.
Yeah.
And it was 10-10 at the time.
And that actually only happened because Tyler Ellsbury stepped on his foot right after the snap.
Ross Tucker on the broadcast was adamant that that's always, and Ross Tucker's a former offensive lineman, that's always the quarterback's fault for not clearing legs out.
Interesting.
Again, there have been some.
He made a good point, right? Because he said like the linemen have to pull and do their work, so the quarterback has
so you gotta
to
get your feet out of the way.
get out.
I don't know. Deacon's been blamed for some weird stuff. Going back to the Wisconsin game where Brock Heward basically blamed Deacon for leading Eric All into a hit when the guy went low on him. I don't know. It was. I do not envy the job of the national broadcast guys who have to come in and learn everything about a team. And CBS Sports had a graphic up for Iowa's defense. I don't know if you guys saw this. The two players they decided to put on the graphic for Iowa's 2023 defense were Cooper DeJean, which I can understand, and Noah Shannon, who, if you're just watching from home, Noah Shannon hasn't played a snap in a year.
Did they mention any of that?
No. But again, I don't envy the national folks who are expected to know everything that we know in a span of 96 hours. And again, a little inside baseball here. That's a graphics department that's just looking for, I'm guessing they just look for most popular names on Iowa's defense. And I'm guessing
Shannon would have been a really easy one to not.
Yeah, that's the one you're Cooper, I get, he's been out there quite a bit and he's still one of Iowa's most impactful defenders, even though he's not playing. But Noah Shannon hasn't played in a year.
Or I wonder if there were notes and the broadcasters just didn't, if it was the producers put, hey, mention that he's been out.
And it was a studio graphic too. It was
okay.
at halftime, but you were just
so
how do you not know?
There was a graphic that I saw during the game I rewatched this morning that I thought was just amazing. The trivia question, Mitch, you probably saw this.
UCF in 2008.
Owen, guess this. Was it under 250 or 280?
What before Iowa?
Yeah.
In 2023, what was the highest? What did UCF number of games they won in 2008? That was the record for a team that had averaged less than 250 yards offense a game.
So most wins for a team that averages.
Yeah,
less
it was
than 250 yards.
UCF, Central Florida in 2008.
Because Iowa averages 240 something.
246.
Yeah.
I was it 5?
4.
It was 4, and they're Iowa has 9.
Was that Kevin Smith on that UCF team too?
Oof, you could not. I don't have any UCF 4 and 8
How do you
knowledge.
Mike, you're really disappointing me not knowing anything about this 2008. I'm going to look them up. So, 4 and 8. George O'Leary, the infamous George O'Leary, was their coach.
Oh, was he the resume guy?
He was the resume guy.
I forgot about it.
They won their opener against South Carolina State, which is an FCS school. Beat SMU. That was their season high for points. They scored 31 against SMU, and then back-to-back road wins at Marshall and at Memphis.
Only podcast in America that will break down a 4 and 8 UCF team
you guys have
from 10 years ago.
Demanding it 15 years ago. We're not
15.
that young.
Give the people what they want.
That, boy, again, that's, I've brought this up before. The idea that Iowa is what they are, they've won 10 games, and they make the other team play this style every single week. That, to me, is the fascinating part of it, is not being mad that Iowa can't move the ball. I mean, they can't move the ball sometimes. But the idea of they force every team, including whoever they play in Indy, to play this style of football because the defense is just so darn good. That's admirable to me. Yeah. That's incredible.
Another question I wanted to bring up to you guys that I've been stewing on since last night. So in the tweet where I put together just some video of Marshall making the kick and then some just post-game shots of him celebrating and everything. And one of the things I mentioned in there is I was this one kick, this one moment makes Marshall an Iowa legend. And people are, mostly Cyclone fans, are in the replies oh, he's a legend for beating a 5-7 team. Oh, he's a legend for beating a team that can't even get to a bowl game. Oh, he's Niall Kinnick already, huh? And I'm I guess I don't know. Again, maybe I'm too prone to hyperbole, but I feel like Marshall Meeder is a name that no living Hawkeye fan right now will ever forget.
Yeah, it's a legend in the sense that he now goes into the lore of guys who have beat Nebraska on a last-second kick.
Would you remember? Yeah. I mean, we would, and fans would, but Miguel Racino's name, Yeah. He was a good kicker for a year or two.
Yeah.
I think he's a legend in the sense that, yeah, he becomes part of the lore. You know, is he a legendary player? Did he have a legendary moment? I would argue the moment is
The
legendary.
moment, yeah.
Now listen, let's not sleep on Marshall Meeder and what he might be able to do. Again, a dude who, and again, the narrative is part of that too, and that's what makes this team so fun. It's what makes covering sports on a daily basis fun, is finding the stories that just kind of boggle your mind. This dude who is an engineering student who was ready to give up kicking 3 months ago just gets a text from LeVar Woods, and now we're talking about him and arguing about what his legend is.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, that's the
it's,
fun stuff.
It's the transfer and it's the off the bench thing that maybe to me even makes it more legendary than Miguel Racinos, or Keith Duncan has a legendary kissing moment. If he doesn't blow kisses, maybe it's not quite as memorable. But yeah, I do think that he's not Niall Kinnick. Let's not build a statue to Marshall Meeder quite yet. But I feel like when your name is remembered for decades by Hawkeye fans, I think that you qualify as legend status, and Marshall Meeder might be that.
A lot of legendary moments in this season. You could probably argue there are very, very few legendary players. I would argue Jay is one of them.
Yeah, Jay Higgins.
He is now, I believe, tied with Iowa tight ends coach Abdul Hodge for 5th all-time for single-season tackles. I believe he's at like 141 or something.
Yeah, I think that's
right. But it's just been guys stepping in. This is such a cool moment that Mike got with Roy Higgins, his dad, who then you can overhear him basically saying, like, here's how many tickets I need for Indy. It was a very funny moment. He's like, I got 40, I need 100.
Oh, I didn't realize his hat says Higginized, which is his Twitter handle.
It's still wild that
he's a brand.
That Roy is probably still more recognizable than his son. He's talked about on Twitter of how, like, guys will come up to him at restaurants after the game where they're like, hey, like, tell your kid he's doing a heck of a job. And Jay's right there. Super, super cool. And we've talked to, I think you got the soundbite from him of Jay being like, yeah, my dad texts me the list of single season tackles and I just have to scroll past it.
Yeah.
Super fun, super cool moment. And the Higgins are heading home.
Yeah.
And we are heading to Indy too on Friday. That's where our coverage will start. Friday from Indianapolis ahead of Iowa against either Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten title game. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some player interviews and talk to Kirk on Tuesday. I believe tomorrow there's a Zoom with Kirk and whoever the other coach is going to be. So we'll have some stuff there for you Sunday night and Monday as well. I haven't been to Indy for a Big Ten title game since 2015, and I was covering Michigan State at the time. But I remember that was the moment where, and I think we talked about this earlier, Iowa fans drank Indianapolis dry, and who knows what happens here in 2023. It's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. Final thoughts from you guys.
I'm excited to watch the game. That's starting in 2 minutes. But the season's been, for all the injuries that happened, after the Minnesota game too, we're like, you could still win 10 games, and I don't think any of us thought they actually were going to do that. And each game has been like just a brutal battle. It's been fun to watch, and I'm excited to go. I think, if we're being honest too, like I don't think many people actually think that Iowa has a shot next week, no matter who wins. But I think the players believe they will, and if the offense can get some first downs and capitalize off some mistakes, who knows? It could be a game in the second half.
I'll put nothing past this team. What do you think?
Yeah. Last week when we were talking about the things that we were thankful for with this Iowa team, I think I said exciting games that do not disappoint, games that are painful to watch but also exhilarating, and we got just one more added to that list on Friday, maybe one of the best yet. That might be my favorite Iowa game this year, that Nebraska game. I'd have to think on that. It just occurred to my mind, but I think that might be my favorite Iowa game this season for covering and watching and being there for it.
Defense,
it was a fun trip.
Special teams, yeah.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting. Yes, Iowa is going to be like a colossal underdog. All these historic underbets.
There will not be a historic under though.
There will not.
The other team.
It will probably be lower than
Probably like 38.5, 37.5.
I think it's going to be in like the 40s, 42, and that's still with Ohio State or Michigan will be like pretty high or pretty low. For one of those two teams, maybe it's 38.
I think it's high 30s. We'll see. They're kicking off right now in Ann Arbor. Yeah. So whoever wins that will head to Indy as well. Again, we'll be there Friday starting our coverage. I've already got one interview set up for Indy that I'm super excited about, and we'll keep getting our coverage ready, and we'll bring everything for you there on Friday. But of course, we'll preview the Big Ten title game coming up on Wednesday on Eye on the Hawks. Thanks to everybody for listening and for subscribing and for pushing up that Twitter fandom. That was awesome to see.
Thanks, Kirk.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. We're over at what, like 370 now, something like that?
Yeah.
Pretty wild. Been a heck of a ride so far. Let's play 2 more games. We'll start next week too. We'll see you Wednesday with the next edition of Eye on the Hawks.